Hey everybody, Eric Rainey here with Philip J. Fournier for this week's episode of The Numbers. Philip, how are you doing this summer? It's obviously been a bit of a weird one when it comes to weather, when it comes to political news. How are you doing?
This is the calm before the storm. I think I mentioned this in recent weeks because it's very quiet in Quebec. But we know there's an election coming and the parties are pre-campaigning. And we will have a flurry of polls starting in August. But for now, it's quite quiet. Political news have not stopped. Of course, the U.S. decided to rattle us again or try to. So there's tons of news. But I'm taking it easy. How about you, Eric? How is beautiful Gaspésie treating you so far?
I saw a seal this morning, so that's always a good day. That's a good way to start. A little peek up. His head up in the water. So
that's nice.
He was wondering when we're coming out with the podcast today.
There you go.
You also had a little prop to share with our.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
About
that.
That's so impolite.
I don't. Oh my goodness.
I have to check mine.
Anyway, yes. Go ahead.
So a friend of mine, his name is David, and I salute him, went to a thrift shop or a flea market, I'm not sure exactly what, and he saw a piece of memorabilia that he got for me. And I'd like to show this beer mug so you can see maybe the PC logo. It's Leadership for the 90s. You can make a difference. And this is a mug from the 1993 Progressive Conservative race, which ended up with Miss Campbell replacing Brian Mulroney, and everything went well after that for the PCs. So,
it did make a difference.
It did make a difference. So I will hold on to this piece of history, and I thank David for the gift. Very much appreciate that. So maybe I'll have a bitter too. No, so okay. So
hey, yeah, you should keep that for one of our upcoming live streams. You can,
you go.
You can drink out of that. So there you go. All right. So please send us your political memorabilia. We'll put a PO box in at the end. No. Okay. So let's get to the actual political news. So we did get some polls this week. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We have a Manitoba by-election, which we'll chat about some polls out of the British Columbia and Alberta. And we're also doing our mailbag episode segment today as well this week. But I think we were all kind of surprised by the news this week. And some reporting I saw suggested that Mark Carney was also surprised that we have gotten some new tariffs, and they're not on a huge amount of goods. I've seen some suggestion that it roughly represent 5% of the trade. There was a story this morning that actually a big chunk of the things that are on the list are things we don't actually export to the United States. One of the items included was hockey equipment, which does suggest to me that this might have been a little personal. But it does mean that we're now, once again, facing down the barrel of tariffs coming in August, new tariffs. And it does feel like the kind of thing that could jolt what was being a little bit of a placid, let's say, political summer, at least for Mark Carney and the Liberals.
Yeah, well, a jolt is one way to describe it. At some point, I think many Canadians will roll their eyes again at this. There's unpredictable and there's random, right? And this may have been actually both. So the Canada-U.S. relations, this is one of the, I don't want to say a promise, but this was one of the promise of the Carney government to try to settle this relationship in the campaign last year. It's not going well. And at the same time, you would think that many Canadians would go, yeah, but it's clearly not our fault. But you remember we talked about this last summer. We wonder, okay, Mr. Carney will have a grace period to try to fix this relationship, and he will be judged on it. We're 1 year later, and it's not better, and I really wonder whether the numbers will move. Because in recent history, I dug up the old Nanos numbers from the end of the Justin Trudeau era. Trump going after Canada for all sorts of reasons, many of them bogus, did not help neither Trump nor did it hurt the government. And it feels like the precedent here is that Mr. Carney will not be hurt by this, but we're awaiting numbers, obviously. Eric, what's your general take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I do think you're right that Canadians are increasingly rolling our eyes at it. I do think that in the run up to the election last year and during the election, Canadians were, I think, quite concerned, and I'd say even afraid about the threats that were coming south of the border. There's still lots of concerns. You still see that in some of the polling, but it's not as urgent and it's not as top of mind. And I think that we've been given the example of the last 18 months or so that, you know, what does it all actually mean?
Yeah.
Anything that actually comes out of the U.S. administration, it eventually sometimes seems to get reversed or it gets struck down by a court or Donald Trump just changes his mind or... so it doesn't seem to have had the same kind of impact on Canadian psyche as I think that we were expecting it to be last year. Because we've seen polling that, still suggests we're still a year and a half into this. Abacus Data had a poll on the CUSMA negotiations, still showing that two-thirds of Canadians, just over two-thirds of Canadians, want us to stick to our principles, even if it means having to have this uncertainty stretch on for longer. A very small percentage of Canadians want to make compromises, want to give in. There was polling from Pew Research I saw, showing that more Canadians have a favorable view of China than they do of the United States now, which is a complete reversal of where things were just a few years ago.
Incredible.
So I don't think people are yet ready to blame the federal government for this relationship. I think a lot of it is still being laid at the feet of Donald Trump. And we have the examples of how he's handled his relations with other countries, which is just as erratic and unreliable. So it does feel like this is not going to necessarily, at least not yet, hurt the government, and it might give them that opportunity they might have needed to refocus this summer. Because we had seen some polling, we've been talking about it for the last few weeks, that the Liberals aren't exactly plummeting. They're not collapsing. They're not even sliding, but they're just kind of softening a little bit in terms of their support. Instead of 45, 46, 47, we now more likely see 42, 43, 44. Which is a great place to be, but it's not as high as it was before. Yeah. And I just wonder if this is the kind of thing that gets them back up to that level if they handle it correctly.
Well, I mean, it's summer polling. It's July polling. We have to be careful. So we had 3 sets of numbers. You want me to go through them, Eric? Or,
sure, go ahead.
So Nanos Research, the usual tracker, the 4-week tracker, this stretches from mid-June to mid-July. 43 for the Liberals, 31 for the Conservatives, 14 for the NDP, and that's interesting, 14. The preferred PM category, we've followed this for quite a while. It has bounced back in favor of Mr. Carney. 52% for Carney, 22% for Mr. Poiliev, and 6% for Lewis. Then we had the 2-week tracker from Liaison, 43 for the Liberals, same score as Nanos, 35 for the Conservatives, 12 for the NDP. Still pretty good government approval from Liaison, 57 approved, 35 disapproved, so that's a plus 22. And finally, we had Abacus data released on Sunday as usual, 43 for the Liberals, 37 for the Conservatives, which is a pretty good number for them. They haven't seen a 37 in a bit. And 9 for the NDP with government approval at plus 20. So all 3 pollsters see the Liberals at 43. All 3 pollsters see the Conservatives from 31 to 37, so a bit of a stretch there, and the NDP from 9 to 14. I'm not ready to say that we saw movement. You said maybe a softening, maybe, but we expect a léger poll next week, maybe. Usually they're doing it monthly. And if we see a léger poll with the Liberals at 47, then probably we'll go like, okay, so it's just noise, summer noise, and there's no change. But again, the patience of Canadians will be tested because at some point it's going to turn back on this government. It's just I'm not sure it's happening now. So here are the main numbers.
Yeah, I don't think that there's like when I'm talking about the softening, I'm more comparing it to like where things were at the very height in maybe March, like April, May. Yeah. When we were seeing like approval ratings for Mark Carney, they were sometimes in the 60s, whereas now we see it in the high 50s. And I mean, we have to put it into context. High 50s approval rating is a good approval rating.
It's great,
for the fact that Liaison can still have that, and Abacus still has 50 positive, 31 negative for Mark Carney, which is still a higher than they put these charts out, but it's higher than where Justin Trudeau was at this point of his first term, which we have to remember is now 10 years ago.
Incredible.
And it's been a Liberal government the entire time. But yeah, I just wonder if this is the kind of thing that could have the potential to get them back up to more regularly in the mid 40s rather than the mid to low 40s, and Carney back closer to the 60s. He's not the only one. Doug Ford has been having some trouble in Ontario with billings for hotel stays that his MPPs have been doing in Toronto, despite the fact that Queen's Park happens to be in Toronto. But
traffic.
There's
traffic.
Yes, traffic. Well, I mean, the Doug Ford wants to handle that, but he seems to be trying to grasp onto that Captain Canada role again over the last few days with the Premier's meeting taking place in Charlottetown. It's a good thing for him to have to be on that, going on CNN and doing that shtick again, to kind of distract at least from his own domestic problems. So I'll be curious to see what's going to happen here. We don't really have an indication in the shorter term what the strategy is going to be. Maybe that'll come out of the Premier's meeting, and maybe if you're listening to this, on the weekend, maybe there's already more information out there.
Yeah.
But we know that Canadians, at least the ones who really care about this issue, they do trust Carney to handle it. There was the polling by Abacus had a 48-point lead among those who ranked Donald Trump and the administration as a top priority, who chose the Liberals over the Conservatives to handle this issue. So it's not like it is, out of all of the issues that are always tested, this is the one that they're strongest on. So anytime that I think we're talking about it and it's being forced upon us by Donald Trump, I think tends to be a good week for Mark Carney. But as you said,
can't last forever, though.
You do wonder if at some point people get a little bit more antsy about wanting results. But I don't know. I still think that when Donald Trump is as he's not polarizing.
He's not polarizing.
He's unpopular.
Yeah, is that right?
In Canada as he is, he's always going to be the one who gets blamed for stuff more often than certainly than Mark Carney. At least if you're mildly favorable to the Liberal Prime Minister, or at least you don't hate him. I mean, Conservatives we've seen polling, might have a bit better views of Donald Trump, but for the rest of the electorate, if they got to choose who they're going to believe on a lot of these stuff, it's not going to be the man in the White House.
Does this affect? I mean, I don't want to draw a straight line here, Eric, but could this affect the timing of upcoming by-elections? Because in the polling, again, we see that when we see numbers on the U.S. relationship and the views of the U.S. president, they're the lowest generally in Quebec and Atlantic Canada. Well, we have 4 by-elections that will come eventually in Quebec, including one that could be called theoretically just before the Quebec election, because M. Martel in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord has indeed resigned his seat. I think M. Saint-Pierre... I'm sorry, blanking on. Oh yes, Saint-Hyacinthe. Yes, that's right. Saint-Hyacinthe Bagot-Acton. This also is a vacant seat, so theoretically we could have 2 Quebec by-elections that are called not called, but announced, or not announced, but happening just before the Quebec elections. Could this be a factor, Eric? I mean, Monsieur Carney perhaps would like to strike the iron while it's hot and say, look, the U.S. is still a problem. We need a strong mandate and we need to send a message. I'm not sure. I think it's risky because the Liberals could lose both. And then what kind of message do you receive? But if we want to go bold and play all in, because I think the Liberals do have a shot in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. What do you think, Eric?
Well, those 2 ridings are also pretty deeply impacted by this discussion. Right?
Yes, they are. Absolutely.
With the aluminum industry in Saguenay, and in Saint-Hyacinthe with what's it called? The supply management, the dairy industry.
Yep.
So there are some direct issues that could, have an impact on that by-election. But we saw that they've named the 2 candidates in Beaches East York and in North Vancouver Capilano.
Yeah.
Braden Cayley, who was one of Mark Carney's top guys in his office and his campaign, and I think it was the riding association or riding assistant for Nate Erskine-Smith in Beaches East York. They have those 2 in place. They don't have them in place in the Quebec riding. So,
as far as we know,
well, they don't. At least they haven't announced it. So, I mean, there is a little bit of a timing issue here, and a by-election is still at least 5 weeks. So, if you called a by-election even this week, you're
August
having
31st.
it take place in the first week of the Quebec election campaign.
Yeah, it would be August
the,
31st. So just before Labor Day. I mean, you can't go later than that. You can't go in the middle of the Quebec election.
No.
I mean, I get you could legally. It's just that I don't think it would be perceived very well. August 31st would work, but it has to be like called in like this week. So I don't know. I'm just wondering whether this affects the timing, and perhaps it really doesn't. And we roll our eyes at the U.S. and
but the thing is, they might have had it mapped out when they were going to have these by-elections, and then this happened this week.
Yeah, that's possible.
So maybe they have to change their mind. But anyway, that'll be the next little thing. The fact that they have their candidates in the two other ridings suggests that call is going to come soon enough. At least, so maybe we'll end up having those by-elections take place early and Quebec after the Quebec election. So we're going to have a number of by-elections. But anyway, we'll see how this is going to unfold. We'll see what impact we have in the polling numbers for Mark Carney and for the other parties over the next few months. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Yes.
So we had an actual by-election take place in Manitoba. So this was in the northern riding of the Pas-Camissac. And there was Amanda Laughlin, who was the NDP MLA there. She passed away earlier this year, so this is why this by-election took place. This has been a very safe NDP riding. They've held it without interruption since 1969. So it wasn't really a question of who would win it, and it was Jennifer Flett, the NDP candidate, who won it. But it was whether we'd see some movement in the actual results, and there was.
Yes, there was. But the thing is, I wonder how dramatic this is. So the NDP candidate, the new MLA, Miss Flett, she had 75% of the vote. That is up 8 points compared to the previous general election in 23. The PC candidate had 17.5. That's down 11 points. And the Liberals got 5%, up half a point. So, I mean, this seems to correlate a bit with the movement we have seen in polls in Manitoba, and we know that provincial polls in Manitoba do not occur that frequently. But it seems to correlate with what we've seen, that the NDP is doing very well. It has gained ground pretty much everywhere in the province, and the PCs have not recovered from their defeat from 3 years ago. I'm not sure if we should read more into that, but Eric, do you have a take on this?
Yeah, well, I got two. One is that, the swing that we did see, as you said, it does match up with the polls, and even the polls outside of Winnipeg. So the last Probe Research poll had about a 20-point swing between the NDP and the PCs based on compared to the last election. So this is a similar kind of swing. So it does kind of suggest that this might not just be a summer by-election turnout, whatever. It could be a better reflection of where things actually are, and so that's important. The other thing is that the Keystone Party had as their candidate Wally Doddridge. Now, Doddridge came very close to becoming the Manitoba PC leader in last year's leadership race. He actually won more votes than Obi Khan, but he didn't win more points based on how the point system worked. And then he was running for the nomination in the riding of Turtle Mountain because the PC MLA is not going to run again, and the PCs barred him. They banned him from the nomination, and he said, you know what, screw you guys, I'm going to go to the Keystone Party, which is kind of like a PPC-style right-wing party.
Yeah, Buffalo Party, yeah.
He got 3%.
Yeah.
Which, there's a lot of focus on this because, he almost won that leadership, and he's switching to parties. Is this going to eat into the PC vote? And he didn't really have that much of an impact. So I just thought that was interesting to note because I was curious to see how Doddridge was going to do. I was wondering if he could actually, beat the
Liberals.
Beat the Liberals. At least beat the Liberals.
Yeah.
And it's just marginal. So I think that means that the PCs, at least for the time being, they can probably not worry about that, put that off to the side. And maybe this story has ended well for them because not only have they gotten Doddridge out of the party, he's shown that he doesn't really have that much of an appeal anyway.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was not the best writing to confirm that theory, but it's a sign, that's for sure. Yeah, interesting.
All right. Well, yeah. The one thing though, you wonder, can Wab Canoe really wait for another year for an election? I guess there's no rush. Maybe
there's no rush, but it will be 3 years in late September, and we're in late July right now. it must be itching. Like, go like, I need a strong mandate, Donald Trump, blah blah blah, and he's been very vocal on Canadian unity. You think that like if you're an advisor, you say, I know that sometimes there's a price to pay. It seems opportunistic, especially for left of center leaders, to go early. But please, please, please go early. You don't know how world events would swing. If you are an advisor of Mr. Canoe, it must be very eating you inside to see the opportunity. Like there's this fall, it's open. Yeah, there's a Quebec election and there's the referendum in Alberta. There's nothing else. And in Manitoba, it could be like a perfect timing to do a Doug Ford and go after 3 years. I have a feeling that they won't do it, but if you just talk about the electoral, not the policy or morality or ethics, if you talk just about the political game of winning elections, like it's 99% just go early. But do you have a prediction, Eric? Do you have a am I wrong here or?
No, I guess the calculation would be: is it going to be all that more tough next year?
Yeah.
So far, Canoe seems pretty Teflon. Well, I don't know. But, you just mentioned the Alberta referendum. Having an election in the midst of the Alberta referendum when things are probably going to be a little nuts and it'll be easier to cast your opponents as being on that side, I don't know. You can and you take your time, you spend your time campaigning for Canada, which is going to be popular in Manitoba.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Oh. Yeah, you're right. Like
it seems like a perfect
storm. It must be tempting. It must be tempting. But let's see. I would still be surprised because it is.
I would be. Yeah.
It's you win a big majority a year early, but it also means your next term is going to be over a year earlier than it might have been otherwise. So I don't know. We'll see.
A politician should not care from 7-8 for his own career, not the province, obviously, but 7-8 years down the road. Yeah, I don't know, you take the W now if you can. Like Doug Ford did it. Does he regret Doug Ford to have gone, in hindsight, it was a good idea to go in February. Again, if you take all the morality and ethics aside, you just go with the electoral game. Doug Ford did the perfect move last year. So, yeah.
Okay, speaking of leaders who are facing some challenges, we got some new numbers out of Angus Reid Institute. For British Columbia and Alberta, and it is on the approval ratings for the two premiers. So this is a bit of an extra peak because we got the quarterly approval ratings not too long ago, but this is a new polling, and yikes, things are not going well for David Eby.
27% approval for David Eby. This is down slightly. It was 31% in June. But interestingly, the disapproval also went down, so there seems to be more uncertainty. The disapproval went from 61 to 54. So overall, if you want to have rosy glasses and you want to go like, hey, we went from a minus 30 to a minus 27. That's pretty good, right? But in a two-party system, 2.5 with the Greens in BC, to have an approval of 27% is just sign of death. Like this is really, really bad for the PC and DP. And I know they still have the benefit of time. The election was in the fall of 24, but the trend line is clear. So it was 40% approval in December for Monsieur Eby. Then 37 in March, then 31 in June, then 27 now in July. So I wonder if the Angus Reid Institute now will be tracking this monthly instead of quarterly, because they could. The BC and DP are definitely in trouble here.
And what's remarkable from the poll, they broke it down by how people voted in the last election. So as recently as March, David Eby had an 82% approval rating among past NDP voters, only 14% disapproved of him. Now his approval rating among NDP voters, people voted for the NDP about 2 years ago, 53% with 32% opposition or disapproval.
That's bad.
So it's not that he, conservatives still dislike him as much as they did before. It's just that he's losing his own base, and maybe that's why there's the undecideds are so much higher, right? Because you'd have a lot of New Democrats who are like, I don't really like him anymore, but I don't like the other options either, so I guess I'm on the fence. And we did see that the don't knows among the NDP went up to 15%. So that is a bit of a problem, right? Because if you lose your base, maybe they stay home. Maybe they don't necessarily go over to the Conservatives. Maybe they go to the Greens. But if he loses his base, then if that is at all reflected within caucus, if it is at all reflected within the membership of the party, there might be some more calls that become a bit more public for David Eby to maybe take his very long steps in the snow. He's a very tall man.
Is that a tall joke?
It took a while. Anyway, so that is a little bit of an issue. We also got some numbers for Danielle Smith.
Yeah.
Her her opinions seem to have improved. She went from an approval rating of 39% just a few months ago to 46%. So maybe her trying to take a stronger position on the referendum issue than she had before, maybe that's helping a little bit. I mean, that's still, it's still kind of a polarized view that she has roughly as many people who dislike and like her, but it does seem that she's recovered a little bit. She's back to where she was before. Before I think that the referendum call probably sapped her strength.
The breakdown per party in Alberta is interesting. So Danielle Smith's approval among UCP went from 72 to 79. That's +7. That's pretty good. That's your own party. You want to be closer to 80% in your own party. But among NDP voters, which we know it's very polarized in Alberta, NDP voters do not really approve of Miss Smith, but it still went from 6 to 12. Now, this could be a little noise, but it's still it's not nothing. That maybe at least there's a bit of softening on how the fact that she's trying to defend Canada, at least in her rhetoric, could be helping her. But overall, 46 approve, 48 disapprove. If you take that into an election campaign, which will happen next year in Alberta in the fall of 27, that's pretty good numbers for a UCP leader. And I have trouble. Unless really the fall in Alberta goes off the rails for the UCP, the referendum goes badly, the AGM that they have in November in Calgary goes badly, you could still see how it derails. But right now, those numbers are pretty good for the UCP and the Alberta Premier.
We haven't gotten many new numbers on the independence question. Nope. Polera had something
been a while, right?
Last week. Had after you take out undecideds, it was 76-24 on the actual question that's being posed. So yeah. That doesn't seem to be moving. I'm curious if, because it's so lopsided, I'm wondering if that's why we haven't seen that many pollsters in the field on it. But be curious to see if those numbers shift at all. If we end up still in October and it's 75-25, it's going to be a very odd referendum campaign. So anyway, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move to the mailbag. So we got tons of mailbag questions, and we're going to reserve the majority of them just for members. So we'll switch over to the member portion in a bit. But we got so many questions, we thought we could include a couple in the public version. So we got two questions about, and these come from our Patreon members. We got two questions about where some leaders might run. So we got a question from Jordan, and we got a question from Scott. Do you want to go first?
Yes. Okay. So Jordan asks, do you have thoughts on what seat Pierre Poilievre may run in the next election? Now, it's an interesting question. Of course, it's very speculative because we have no idea. But the question implies also that Pierre Poilievre will run in the next election as leader, which I don't think it's 100%. I think it's high. But at this point, I mean, if the next election really is in 2029, that's a long time to keep accumulating unfavorable numbers and trailing Mark Carney and see those seat projections showing your party at 100 or 115 seats. But if let's to transport ourselves. Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the Conservatives into the next election. Where should he run? Do you have like a speculative hypothesis, Eric?
Well, we know that he's not going to run in Battle River Crowfoot because it was part of the arrangement when Damien Carrick stepped aside. He said that he would be back afterwards. So I think we can rule that out. I mean, the guy still lives in Ottawa, as far as I can tell. He still has a house down in his old riding. I mean, assuming he didn't sell it, I don't know. It's hard to see how he could run anywhere but Carleton again.
Really? Oh. He lost like 4,000
where does he
votes,
run?
man.
Wherever he'd be running, it would be kind of like a fake place to run that he has no real links to or anything like that. So
Yeah, but Battle River Crowfoot was fake for him too. I mean, yeah, I know,
I
he grew up in
know, but
Alberta,
it's a bit of a circumstance there. If you had to give me a list of the ridings he'll run in, I would still put Carleton at the top. I mean, maybe he could choose one of the nearby ones, like
just outside
Renfrew or Lanark or one of those.
Yeah,
but
Leeds.
why? He has no links to those ridings. Like, I don't know. I think that if he ends up running in like a safe riding in Calgary or somewhere where he grew up or something like that, it would be an admission of weakness. I think running in Carleton would be a sign of some confidence. And I know that he probably wants to stay on, but if he lost in Carleton again, he's probably lost the election, which probably helps make for a cleaner exit.
Yeah. You know, I was looking at the questions from our members and thinking about this one. Like, if you remove the names and the context and you just say, okay, so there was this conservative leader who was leading by 20, 25 points, winning in all the metrics, the preferred prime minister, the favorables, the voting intentions, everything. And in 4 months, it all collapsed and he lost the election and he lost his own seat. You would think, okay, so this guy is now in the private sector. He's done, right? And like, no, he actually stuck to his guns and went to a safe riding in Alberta, and he's staying on, he's fighting on. So, and there's some virtue for some people. Say, okay, he perseveres. Perseverance is, I think, a quality, right? But I was thinking more, okay, so among the conservative MPs that are in the GTA and outer GTA, surely one of them will get a new job somewhere. And maybe like in King Vaughan or like Newmarket Aurora, it's like those seats just outside of Toronto. There's so many of them that are good for the Conservatives, not great but good for the Conservatives. You'd think, okay, perhaps the leader going there, but the routes to the riding, that's overdone, man. It's if a leader runs into a riding, if he's outside, I'm not sure how. Especially in like urban and suburban areas, it doesn't really matter, does it? Like it's more important usually in rural areas.
I guess. Rule. I mean, Carney ran into PN where he didn't really have any links, but he came in kind of late and he didn't really have that many options, right? He would have needed to boot someone out, which they did. But so I don't know. I guess I could see him just running in, like I said, in one of the other Eastern Ontario ridings, which could at least make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But if he ran in the GTA, that would be bizarre to me. I don't know. I still think Carleton is the. I think Carleton is the most likely. I don't know if that makes it the actual one. Like I don't know if it's more than 50%. But if I had to rank how likely it is, I still put Carleton at the top.
I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Similarly, we got another question from Scott. Where do you think Abby Lewis has the best chance of getting a seat, and how likely is it to happen before the next election?
Oh boy.
I don't think unless someone resigns, someone from his caucus. And it would have to be, I think, Jenny Kwan.
Heather McPherson, maybe?
Or Don Davies. Oh, Heather McPherson?
In Edmonton?
Abby Lewis running in Edmonton.
I mean, it's a
maybe.
But if that happens in Edmonton Strathcona, you would think the Liberals would throw everything to take this riding, which they haven't run in. It has to be like the 50s or something. I didn't check. I should have. But the Liberals winning that region,
recently.
It's been a long, long time. It would have to be around Vancouver or Vancouver Island. There were speculations in the spring that he would go again either in Toronto in one of the Scarboroughs or something. It's just that you're the leader. You want to go into a seat that at least maybe not a safe seat, but at least a favorable seat. We don't see in the numbers right now favorable seats for the NDP, the federal NDP in Ontario. So that would, somebody would have to resign. I mean, right now we know it's not Rosemont La Petite Patrie. I would have found that very interesting because there is a left of center base in Rosemont La Petite Patrie, which is pretty solid. It votes Québec Solidaire provincially. It voted for the NDP for a long time for M. Boulris. Now M. Boulris is going provincial. It would have been interesting to see M. Lewis try. It's like, okay, there's that seat in Montreal. I will practice my French and we'll show. But no, they chose another candidate, M. Serré, his name is. So, I would be Vancouver Island or somewhere around Vancouver, I guess. I
think
have no
there's
idea.
a number of the Vancouver seats would probably make the most sense. He will. I think if the second question, how likely is it to happen? I think it would only happen if someone was resigned in a very safe seat. I think that's the only likely. And we do have some things that could cause that, right? Because we have the Alberta election next year, as you said, Heather McPherson, and we have the BC election in 2 years, which presume which
in this mandate.
And there again, you have you have a number of BC MPs who could decide to want to run provincially. So, but I imagine that they have in mind a seat in Vancouver. That's where he lives. I guess we'll see. Okay, so we're going to now move over to the members-only segment of the mailbag. If you want to listen to that and you're not already a member, go to thenumberspod.ca and you can join the Patreon. You can have your questions included in the mailbag. You can go to the Discord and get early and ad-free access to all of our episodes. And I'm planning a bonus surprise episode for Philip next week. Don't tell him.
Really?
But anyway, so for the members, just stick around. For everybody else, we'll be back with the number of the week. All right, as promised, number of the week. Do you want to go first?
Yes, absolutely. So it's from that Abacus poll. You mentioned it earlier on Cosma. 20% of Canadians say that Canada should be willing to make compromises to reach an agreement sooner, an agreement with the US and Mexico, of course. And Mexico is not really the problem here. we know where the problem lies, right? And 69% said we should hold firm on our positions. Now, holding firm is always, I don't want to say the bravado macho posturing, like, yeah, we're holding firms. You have to make concessions to reach a deal. It's just that the man negotiating in front of you and his team of negotiators are not really in good faith. And that's a problem. When you have a good faith negotiations, you make compromises left and right, and it works. And now there's a feeling that whatever we make concessions, they will just renege on their signatures anyway, right? The COSMA has Mr. Trump's signature on it, and he just, ignored it in the past few years. So I think this 20% are willing to make compromises. Yeah, it'd be nice, but be careful what you wish for, because even if we make compromises and we sign a deal, 6 months later, he could renege on it. So let's be careful.
All right, my number is also from Abacus. It's 68%. This was the total amount who answered one of the two answers that I'll provide. On the question of why Mark Carney said that he thought that the U.S. strikes on Iran, the strikes they made recently, were appropriate. So 34% of Canadians said he mostly says it to maintain a good relationship with President Trump and protect Canada's trade interests. And another 34% said he partly believes that it was actually a good reason to go strike, but also that he wants to maintain that good relationship with the United States. So 68% perceived that Mark Carney was expressing support for the strikes on Iran, in part just to mollify Donald Trump. And what I find really interesting about that, it does suggest that Canadians understand this game that he has to play. Yeah. I've seen lots of people sometimes have commentary like, when Carney kind of praises Trump, do people understand that he's doing it to kind of flatter him? It's not like something that he actually believes. I think when you see in this poll, Canadians are kind of wise to this. They understand that Donald Trump has to be kind of handled. And so they understand that when Carney says things that are positive or in some way supportive of the United States, that is probably a part of the calculation. And I just thought it was interesting that the poll actually found that people kind of get that this game that he has to play with Donald Trump is not necessarily a reflection of his actual true feelings. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
So that'll be it for this week. Again, if you're not a member of the podcast and you'd like to get the mailbags, the bonus episodes, ad-free early episodes, access to the Discord, go to thenumberspod.ca, support the podcast, and we appreciate your support. And everybody who is a member, again, thank you very much. So, Philippe, we'll be back next week. As I said, I think I'll have a bonus episode for our members and for you. I think it could be fun. We'll find out. But anyway, I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll chat next week.
I thank you very much, Eric. Thank you, everybody. Merci beaucoup. Have a great weekend.